Here's a strange thing you may have noticed about unusually sharp people. When everyone else answers immediately, they sometimes go quiet. Not because they have nothing to say. Sometimes it's because they notice something everyone else missed. Imagine someone asks, "Who caused this problem?" Most people immediately start naming people. A careful thinker might stop and ask, "Are we even sure that's the right question?" That's a tiny difference, but it matters. Instead of grabbing the first answer, they examine the frame around the problem. Maybe the question assumes something that isn't true. Maybe there are three possible causes instead of one. This can look like hesitation from the outside. But sometimes, the pause is where the real thinking happens. And there's another habit that reveals something even more unusual about how their minds work. Imagine arguing for something you genuinely believe. You've got your reasons. Then someone gives you one fact you hadn't considered. Suddenly, your argument doesn't work anymore. Most people feel a little sting. A strange thing happens next. Instead of examining the new information, they start defending themselves. But a strong thinker can sometimes do something socially uncomfortable. Okay, that changes my answer. No dramatic speech. No excuses. They simply update. Their ego isn't welded to the conclusion. And that's a useful distinction. Being wrong hurts less when being right isn't part of your identity. This can make them look inconsistent to someone watching from the outside. But there is a difference between changing your mind randomly and changing it when the evidence changes. And sometimes that same flexible mind develops a very odd habit. It gets obsessed with questions nobody else cares about. You know, those useless little questions that suddenly get stuck in your head. Like, why do old books have that particular smell? Or why does your voice sound strange when you hear a recording of yourself? Or why do people remember the same event differently? Most people notice the question and move on. A deeply curious mind may not. One question becomes another, then another, and suddenly, you've spent an hour trying to understand something that has absolutely nothing to do with your day. That isn't always productive. That's important. Curiosity doesn't always look useful while it's happening. But this habit can train the brain to connect things that normally stay separate. A question about memory can lead into psychology. A question about language can lead into history. A question about machines can lead into human behavior. The unusual part isn't knowing every answer. It's being unable to leave an interesting question alone. And that becomes especially powerful when they turn the same curiosity toward everyday life. Most people learn a system by learning its rules. Then they stop asking why the rules exist. But imagine someone at a restaurant noticing that customers always form one long queue. Everyone accepts it. One person wonders, why one queue? Would two shorter queues actually move faster? Or someone notices a website makes customers click through 6 screens to do something that should take 2. Everyone else complains about it. One person starts asking, why was it designed this way in the first place? That's where this habit becomes useful. They don't automatically treat familiarity as proof that something works. And sometimes that makes them incredibly useful. Incredibly annoying too. Because if you keep asking why, eventually you'll question something people have emotionally attached themselves to. You might point out that an old process wastes time. Someone says, we've always done it this way. And instead of accepting that answer, you're already wondering, yeah, but why? But there is one final habit that makes all of these behaviors much more powerful. And it's also the one most people find hardest to develop. Your brain can create a convincing story in seconds. Someone doesn't reply. Your brain says they're annoyed. A friend looks distracted. Your brain says something is wrong. You remember an argument. Your brain quietly edits the story until you become certain you were completely right. Here's the uncomfortable part. You usually don't feel fooled while it's happening. The thought feels like reality. That's why unusually strong thinkers sometimes create a strange habit of questioning their own conclusions. Not every thought deserves trust. So they might ask, what evidence would prove me wrong? Am I reacting to what happened or to what I think happened? Would I believe this if I didn't already want it to be true? And now the five habits look different. The pause isn't just silence. It's resistance to the first answer. Changing your mind isn't weakness. It's freedom from your own ego. Chasing strange questions isn't pointless. It's how unexpected connections begin. Questioning ordinary systems isn't being difficult. Sometimes it's how better systems are discovered. And questioning your own thoughts isn't insecurity. It's recognizing that your brain is powerful enough to convince you of things that aren't true. So maybe the rarest sign of intelligence isn't having more answers. Maybe it's having less loyalty to your answers. Because when you're willing to question your own thinking, you can keep learning without needing your old beliefs to survive. And that changes the entire game. The smartest mind isn't the one that never gets fooled. It's the one that can notice, I might be wrong, and actually do something about it.